Again, I'm just going to highlight when one starts talking about environmental factors and how they're poisoning us or disrupting growth or fertility rates, it can start to sound a little bit crazy, except when you start to actually look at some of the real data from quality research labs funded by federal government, funded not from companies or other sources, that are really aimed at understanding what the underlying biology is. And for that, we should all be grateful to Tyrone Hayes at UC Berkeley. I remember way back when I was a graduate student in the late 90s, at UC Berkeley, and I remember he was studying frogs. He was talking about developmental defects in these frogs that live in different waters around, it was California, but also elsewhere. And he identified a substance which is present in a lot of waterways throughout this country and other countries, so U.S. and beyond, certainly not just restricted to California, which is atrazine. This is Atrazine. Again, this is the stuff of textbooks, and it causes severe testicular malformations. So again, atrazine exposure is serious. And what's interesting is if you look at the data, what you find is that at sites in western and midwestern sections of the United States, 10 to 92% of male frogs, these were frogs, mind you, had testicular abnormalities. And the most severe testicular malformations were in the testes rather than in the sperm. So it's actually the organ itself, the gonad itself. Now, it's very well known now that atrazine is in many herbicides. And so, whereas I would say in the 80s and 90s, the discussion around, herbicides and their negative effects was considered kind of like hippy-dippy stuff, or the stuff you hear about it, your local community markets and these kind of new agey communities. Now there's very solid data from federally funded labs at major universities that have been peer-reviewed and published in excellent journals, showing that indeed many of these herbicides can have negative effects, primarily by impacting the ratios of these hormones in either the mothers or in the testes, altering the testes of the fathers, or direct effects on developing young animals and potentially humans. And so you ask, well, what about humans? Frogs are wonderful, but what about humans? So here are the data on what's happening. This isn't all going to be scary stuff. We're also going to talk about tools to ameliorate and offset some of these effects.